All right, welcome to Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by the letter Q, the number 4, and COVID-19.
Yeah.
So
the number 19.
That's right, and the number 19.
Yeah.
On the show today, we've got Gary Killingsworth from Team Gun Talk, and also a gun industry veteran, Tim O'Connor. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
So everybody's kind of self-quarantined here, I guess. And you guys happen to both be in Oregon, but not necessarily next door to each other, I guess, right?
Yeah. What are we about? We about an hour apart, Tim?
I would say so now, yeah.
Yeah. Feels so much closer now, though.
Oh, yes.
Now that I can see you.
Well, it's funny because Oregon is out there on the West Coast, and some people may not realize the big gun culture in Oregon. I mean, really along the West Coast in general, but I mean, there's a lot of gun industry companies there, which is why you guys are there. But talk a little bit about, kind of the Oregon gun culture in general, just to kind of fill people in.
Yeah. So we've talked about this at length, Tim and I, and you and I as well, Ryan. It's funny because the cities get the publicity, right? So you hear a lot coming out of Portland, especially Portland. But get outside of Portland, and you have gun culture everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere. I mean, like you said, there's a ton of companies that are up here. There's a lot of shooters. There's a lot of people who are big into training. It's here for sure.
Well, like a lot of states, you have the tail that wags the dog kind of thing. And Oregon strikes me as one of those. You've got Portland, and then you've got the rest of the state. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the I-5 corridor is the problem. I mean, all up and down the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, Eugene, all the way down through LA. I-5 corridor rules the rest of the state's voting population. So it really becomes kind of unfair for the rest of the state. So
yeah.
And there's a lot of rural America when you get head towards the coast, throughout Oregon and Washington. A lot of rural America. Head east in either state, and I mean it's small town America. You could literally think that you're almost anywhere.
Sure. Oh yeah, you've got lumberjacks and just blue collar folks who are freedom loving, outdoor loving folks. So I think our audience is starting to get to know Gary a little bit, but Tim, for people who don't know, maybe explain a little bit of your background in the outdoors and the gun world.
So, well, I've always been into guns and firearms and reloading, pistol, rifle, shotgun, archery. I just have done it all since I was a very young kid. Started into the firearms kind of, just with an FFL at a company that I worked for. It wasn't really a serious gun shop. And then went on to work at the Place to Shoot, an indoor shooting range in Portland. And then from there, I went on to work at Loophole, and I was at Loophole for nearly 20 years. And after Loophole, went over and worked with Gary at Crimson Trace. And,
doing their optics.
Yeah, and they're moving the facility. Well, they're moving most of the facility to Missouri, and I didn't necessarily want to move to Missouri, so I'm doing a lot of independent contracting and consulting within the industry right now.
Well, and you're also a shooting instructor. I mean, you've worked and done some instructing at Gunsite, actually, right?
Yeah, I've been a Gunsite instructor since 2014. Been actually going there since '99 when I started Loophole. I've also worked with Oregon Firearms Academy and possibly here with DPSSD, Department of Public Safety and Training here in Oregon in the near future.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, for people who haven't been to a shooting class, and I don't mean, a 1-hour instruction when you bought the gun or your concealed carry class, but a maybe multi-day shooting class, what do people get out of it if they've never been before?
Well, as far as pistol's concerned, pistol is all about gun handling. It's not about accuracy and actually even shooting. It's about making sure that you can manipulate the pistol, keep it up and running, keep it fed with ammunition. If you have any stoppages, to clear those quickly. And because it is a short-range firearm, especially if you're using it for home defense or personal defense, you need to be able to do those things efficiently. and under pressure. So there's a lot to I'm a long gun guy by my nature in the industry, but by far my favorite class is to teach are that defensive handgun classes.
Yeah, and I think we've been talking about it a little bit about dry fire practice. We actually started the year off talking about dry fire, and now we're all sitting in our homes dry firing constantly. I mean, for people who are sitting at the house, got an itchy trigger finger, what are some of the things that you'd recommend?
Well, I think everybody should have a blue gun, ring style fake gun, I guess you can call it, just for doing, manipulations like presentations. And you can do quite a bit of practice with something inert like that. And you can also get into some of the simulated firing. Gary and I have some history with laser light, they do the little laser pistols. Not necessarily a great training tool. Yeah, there you go right there. Not necessarily a great training tool for trigger control and things like that, because their triggers are not nearly what the real life pistol triggers are, but there's still value in some of those just practicing gun manipulation. Yeah, absolutely. And they're fun.
And something that I think I was actually listening back to when we talked to Max Michel a few weeks ago. He's just saying, just having the gun in your hand every day, where it's just a piece of you, it's just a part of you. I mean, Gary, how often do you think people ought to be getting the gun in their hand, maybe getting a few squeezes of the trigger?
Oh, consistently. I mean, I guess daily if you can, and you should. I mean, one of the things, Tim and I talked about this, we did a Gunsite, I myself as a student and him as an instructor this last fall, and we talked about things, every night basically. And one of those things was the way that dry fire, so utilizing dry fire training, dry training period, it's not just necessarily to keep up your chops as much as improving. Like, yeah, you can use this time to improve and get better as a shooter, not just necessarily maintain, although you can do that, but you can get better. You should be dry firing often. And I've heard many instructors, I think Tim even said it in his own way this year, was that live fire is confirmation you've been putting in your work doing dry fire.
Yeah. So Tim, do you have some favorite dry fire drills for people listening?
Well, I believe that the fastest way to get up on target, which is what we all want to do, we want to be able to get up on target, get our shot off quickly. And the presentation, it's all about presentation. So presenting the pistol, at Gunsite, we do a 5-step presentation, and you can practice that extensively at home very safely. You can use a completely inert gun to do that, and to pick up that front sight as you're presenting the pistol to the target. If you do all of that properly at the end of the presentation, you pull the trigger and your shot's going to go where you want it to. So in order to shoot quickly, practice presentations. That's what aims the first shot.
So drawing the gun, and the nice thing is you can set it up where you're drawing from concealment, or you can draw from like you're on the range, depending on what your thing is. If you're a concealed carry guy, or maybe you're just saying, I don't really do that, but I like the gamer side of it. I like the USPSA go fast side of it. Put your whole rig on at home, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
When somebody says, okay, I'm doing my dry fire, I'm practicing my presentation, all this stuff, are there ways to mix it up or spice it up?
Well, I think you said it right there. You can definitely do it from concealment, making sure you're clearing concealment properly if that's what you want to do. This would be a good time to practice different firearms too. Most of the time we go out on the range with our battle rattle all around us, our gear, right?
Right.
And then sometimes we end up heading out, on the highway with a 5-shot J-frame.
Right. Yeah.
So it's good to be able to practice the different, one thing that I know I need to practice and I don't is drawing from my ankle holster. I spend no time practicing it. And I should, because it's one of those things you're going to discover a lot of challenges, and you're going to overcome them, figure out solutions to problems when you're trying that stuff.
Yeah, you're right. People don't practice with the not fun stuff. It's just like, we don't do the exercises and working out that we hate. We do the ones that we're like, oh, I like to do bench press, and I do bench press.
It's definitely a great time also to be able to integrate movement things that you don't necessarily get to do on the square range that much, just for, safety reasons and, controlling the numbers. But
it's a good point, because there are a lot of shooters who go to ranges where they're not allowed to draw, they're not allowed to move. And it's always kind of like this, well, how do I work on this stuff if I'm not allowed to do that at the range? We can work at it at home.
Go to a different range.
Go to a different range. Yeah. Go sign up for a class that they'll let you do all of this stuff in a safe manner. That's a tough thing, because if you haven't been to a class, it's kind of like, what are you practicing? You haven't been taught anything. Now you're practicing just what you think. I mean, there's probably some decent instructional things you can find online. I guess you have to be careful of where you get the information from. But
sure.
Something else we were thinking about is not just your pistol side, but your rifle side. I mean, you can do dry fire with a rifle, and actually Mantis has a new deal that you can plug into your AR, and it resets the AR trigger, which is kind of neat. But you could practice with your AR. You're getting used to that trigger pull, just bringing it up on target. It also, I used to do this in my bedroom when I was a teenager. I had my bolt action hunting rifle, and I would sit there and just offhand, which offhand is probably the hardest thing to do anyway with a long gun, offhand, and just squeeze the trigger, run the bolt, squeeze the trigger, run the bolt. And then you can get really fast with the bolt. You get really used to your trigger. You know exactly when it's going to break, and you get used to that wobble of the crosshairs just in your bedroom.
And it's the hands-on gun. It's a hands-on gun thing. I mean, it's critical, because you're getting to do those things that you're not necessarily going to be able to do on a controlled range. Yeah. Where it's just the gun is up, everything is controlled. You're moving around with it. You're putting yourself in, body positions that are going to be more realistic.
Sure. Along those lines, getting some snap caps, whether that's rifle or pistol, awesome for instruction or practice. Be sure you don't screw it up and put live rounds in the gun and shoot your TV or, whatever. But, snap caps are cool. Also, you think about your hands on the gun, manipulations. Yeah, you could do it with pistol. You could also do it setting up jams in a pistol with, if you have snap caps, inert rounds, you can do it in your pistol or your AR. It's one of those things that's not fun, but it's worthwhile. Doing like double feeds on an AR is the most pain in the butt thing ever. And it's why none of us probably put much time into it. You look
really, really cool when you know how to do it well.
Oh, you look like a badass. If you can clear a double feed in an AR real quick. Yeah.
Yep.
I tell students that all the time with the double feed specifically, because it's the most miserable thing to practice. But once you practice it for a while and you get good at it, it kind of becomes fun.
Yeah.
So I always make sure and do a lot of practice on double feeds.
Yeah. Yep. Another thing that you can do, and this is a little bit even more out of left field, is there's actually a way to practice your wing shooting at home. And there's a couple different ways to do it. But one would be if you've got your shotgun and basically the mount, kind of like you're talking about the presentation and pistol, the mount is everything with shotgun, because your eye is the rear sight, where you could follow the line between the ceiling and the wall. And you're following that line with the gun like it's a bird or a clay flying, and then you can break the shot as you mount. You can also do it where you take a little mini mag light or some sort of flashlight that'll stick in the barrel of the shotgun and try to focus it in. It could be a laser perhaps too, and you can kind of track and see where the thing is aimed as you come up on target. You can do it as a still way too, just still, and make sure when you mount the gun that it's pointed where you're looking. But for tracking targets, it's another option.
And just muscle memory. I mean, that's what you're creating, really, like any other athletic endeavor. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, one of the best shotgun instructors that we have in the U.S. Is Gil and Vicky Ash, or instructors, husband and wife team. But Gil Ash, he has a program that he says he can improve your shotgun shooting, and it's by a lot. It's like by 50% on like a sporting clays round, just with dry fire. You just follow his deal. It's OSP Shooting School if you're interested. I don't make a dime from it, but they're pretty cool and they do a good job. Where you can do practicing your mount on your shotgun, and if you can improve your shooting, and then by June when we're back out with our buddies shooting, you can just smoke everybody.
Yep. When everyone else is rusty.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
I've gotten more mounts, more draws, more trigger pulls in the last 90 days than I normally do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, so Ryan, going back to something that you touched on earlier and having Tim here, to talk, from an instructor standpoint is like the multi-day classes, things like that. So I'll say Gunsite specifically, just taking the 250 as an example and the arc in which students take. So it's different than like a Saturday afternoon class or a 2-day class or things like that. It's 5 days. And Tim, I'd love to hear more about kind of the arc that students take. So, you've got day one and everyone comes with the skills that they arrived with. And then in my experience as a student, you start to see everyone on the line almost start to degrade just a little bit because they're drinking from the fire hose, and then they start putting it together. And that's about when they start talking about the Gunsite epiphany, and then they finish out. So love to hear from an instructor. Yeah.
Well, it's always fun. And a lot of people, at the end of the class, you can see who has, received the most information from the fire hose and actually benefited from it. Some people just, they can't take any more information in about halfway through the week. But these classes are not meant to be taken, graduated, and move on to the next class. If I were to go to Gunsite to take a class, it'd be a 250 right now. And I would take it over and over again. I'd take one every year. And it's a little bit back to the basics, but man, those fundamentals are so important, and they do so much to improve your overall performance. That, before you start drawing with a support hand and doing crazy stuff like that, man, you got to be a great shooter really to get on those new techniques and benefit to the maximum on those. So yeah, I would definitely say go back, take the same classes over and over again. Don't necessarily change pistols. Just keep your gear and just get extremely proficient at what we're trying to get proficient at. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, I find that the good multi-day classes don't start out on hour one with a lot of shooting.
No, not at all. You've got to start it, and it's tough because what do you start with? You start with the presentation. Do you start with the trigger press? Do you start with holding the gun, standing? Well, they all need to be started at the same time, but you can't do that.
Right.
So you really kind of have to build up those skills and go back and say, okay, now that we've learned how to present the pistol, we need to learn how to aim it. See a 2-day class minimum in order to really get what you need to get. But then, like with the three days additional on a 250, that's where you start taking what you've learned in those first 2 days of the basics and really putting them all together and getting good with them. That's why I think I see so much success with a 5-day 250 course. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
And the gear shakedown is always always entertaining as well too, because
well, like Tim, you said, we all want to bring our coolest stuff to the big 5-day class, right?
Tim is notoriously crusty when it comes to keep it basic, keep it simple. You like a lot of bone stock. If it works, you stick with it.
Yeah. If it doesn't work, you need a big change.
Yeah, that's right. It's always fun to see instructors when students come up and they're on the line, and the instructors want to go down the line and understand what they're going to be dealing with. Holsters that don't fit, you name it, extra stuff you don't need. It's always fun to see the instructors kind of, I guess, playfully jab with the students.
Well, you guys have seen a lot of stuff, and you've seen what doesn't typically work. I mean, are there a couple things that you see, guns, holsters, setup, whatever, that typically you see problems from?
Well, there's stuff like the circle holsters that, they have the push button that we just don't allow in the range for safety reasons. We've gotten to the point where we don't even deactivate them anymore. We don't allow them at all. But without getting into like particular guns, I don't want to bash on any pistols out there, but there are definitely pistols you walk down and you think, yeah, by day 2, this guy's gonna be real frustrated with this setup.
Yeah.
But
and maybe it's not even just a brand thing, but there's a category of stuff that they use that just doesn't seem to work.
Well, and that's a great way to break it out. I would say the more buttons, switches, levers, lights, diodes you have on your pistol, and those are usually to create some kind of safety, are usually barriers to you learning. You can get past it. For instance, a Beretta 92 is a decocking safety double single pistol. There's a lot of things going on with that pistol. It's very difficult to teach somebody that pistol. Can they learn past it and get good with it? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we see it all the time with M9s, military guys coming in,
Sure.
guys that have mastered it, and it gets great. But the student up front needs to understand you've brought a difficult pistol to learn how to shoot, and you're just going to have to figure it out. And once they do, and if they get past that point, and then they have success with it, and it's great. But besides that, there's things like I see folks bringing compact and subcompact pistols to a class, and then they go out and they buy 10 compact magazines to go with that pistol. Don't do that. Don't do that type of stuff. Always shoot full-size magazines. Think about what you're going to do, and bring the right kind of gear. Make sure that you have proper pistol pouch or mag pouches that you can get the mags in and out of easily. Things like that.
Yeah. So you train up and you can carry down. So like if your system is a Glock 19 and you carry a 26 or a 43 or something like that.
Yeah, bring a big full-size gun. I mean, just reloading the mags fewer times in 5 days when you're going to shoot 1,000 or 2,000 rounds or whatever it is. And then also, by day 2 or 3 with a little bitty gun, you're going to get real tired of shooting that sucker. You're going to feel it more versus like a Glock 17 or a P320, some big full-size gun. It's just that actually it almost becomes more comfortable. A big full-size M&P. You're like, God, I'm comfortable with the trigger. I'm comfortable with the sights. By day 3, day 4, on those classes, I felt like I can pretty much place it where I want it when I want it.
Yeah, you need to decide. You need to decide if you're there to learn how to shoot, or are you there to learn how to shoot that subcompact pistol or whatever it is. And if the answer is I want to learn how to shoot, then get a big gun, nice, comfortable combat pistol. You can learn how to shoot with that, and then switch to your 5-shot J-frame or your Glock 43 or whatever you might be carrying or wanting to shoot in different situations. And take those fundamentals and transfer them.
And then they have classes for those small guns, that you can run. And it's certainly, we said it earlier, people don't train with their small carry guns as much, and you should. But if you've really never taken a class, what we're saying is like a full-size gun is the place to start. You don't want to handicap yourself going in. So you've been teaching for a while. What else? I was actually thinking about right now, you have a lot of people who are either one, they have toys to go outdoors with, guns, boats, ATVs, whatever. And I think they're thinking, man, I could go do that. I can't go hang out with people, but I can go get out and use my toys. And in our world, it's a lot of guns and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about stuff that's coming up really soon here that people can get out and do with their guns. So for instance, predator hunting, coyotes, and then also we're getting into prairie dog season too out in the West. Thoughts on that? I know you've probably done a bit of that, huh, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's all kinds of things. It's almost year round that you can go shoot at something, go hunting, or but yeah, just getting out and walking around, taking your rifle for a walk is not a bad thing either. But we're lucky. We have property here. We spend a lot of times working on the starlings and the rats around the barn. So I mean, you just look around. There's stuff for you to do, and if you want to get away from the house, that's good too. Like you said, it's social distancing, getting out in the wilderness. So always a good time.
Yeah. Gary, what are your plans for coming up here? Any chances to go shoot or do some hunting or something like that? Trigger time?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I can. I've got a buddy on the screen right here, right now with some property, so he'll probably get a visit. Yeah. I mean, I'll be 6 feet away.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on out.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. I'm also tapping into all of my air guns. I actually was looking around. I was like, wow, I didn't realize how many air guns I have here. I've got, with scopes on them, and I can go outside and same thing, offhand, You can get prone, you can get kneeling, you can practice all this stuff and plink with pellets and BB guns.
Yeah. And that's the hands-on gun thing too, because I mean, how many of them now are literally mimicking, their actual firearm counterpart.
Yeah. I've got a SIG MCX pellet gun. It looks exactly like it. It's awesome.
Yeah. The United States has not discovered air rifles yet.
No.
We will eventually, especially.
And how cool they are.
Yeah, they're a heck of a lot of fun. Love it.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yes, very powerful. What are you guys hearing right now in the world of guns and ammo? I was just on a call this morning with somebody who said, they're just, it's record sales right now. They're selling out of everything.
Yeah, I mean, out here and just like everywhere else, I mean, it's same story, and you're getting a lot of first time buyers.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of people, stocking up. It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah. We were actually putting out an article, Tim, that maybe it's not so bad to have a pistol in a strange caliber right now. If you can't find 9 and 45, maybe having a 40 Smith & Wesson, which isn't strange, but maybe not as popular, or, a 357 SIG or 10 millimeter. Now, at this point, who knows? Maybe everything's bought up depending on where you are. But, if you have a pistol in maybe something that's not as popular, maybe you can find ammo for it. What do you think?
It's kind of a foreign concept. I think if you don't have, 10,000 rounds for every firearm, you're probably a little short, but
I don't understand what you're talking about.
I don't understand it. Yeah. So I do. I get people calling me, and do you have a spare pistol? Do you have extra ammunition? And it's always that way, but that's an interesting concept. I guess you could do that. I always worry about, in the not lean times, being able to find ammunition. If you're shooting a 357 SIG, now you're hunting around when you just want to go buy ammo. It shouldn't be a big deal, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have something a little odd.
That 40 that you've been meaning to sell for a while, maybe you can actually find some ammo for it when you can't find ammo for your other stuff.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I just discovered a 40 Smith & Wesson that I had, and
there you go.
They sneak in there.
Discovery.
How'd that
now is the time it's the time right now for the back of the safe discoveries for sure.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm running around looking through the ammo piles and saying, geez, I know I have some 40 Smith & Wesson. I know I have some extra Glock magazines for 40 Smith & Wesson. Where's all that stuff?
Yeah. And also, if you have a gun that you've already decided way back, weeks or months ago that I don't shoot this thing, I'm going to sell it. If you haven't yet, now's a good time to do that. A lot of people buying guns, and your local dealer maybe sold out of a lot of stuff. So he would love to get a gun on consignment, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. Here in Oregon, we've got to go through background checks in order to train. You can't do person-to-person transfers without getting FFL involved. Yeah. And a lot of the FFLs are still fighting with our governor on staying open. It's getting a little challenging to transfer stuff right now.
Well, the Department of Homeland Security just deemed that gun and ammo manufacturers and retailers are essential businesses, at least a federal decree. So that'll help. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't stop a governor from doing something, but it may help, may slow them down. And it certainly would help if we have a lot of guys in like the Firearms Policy Coalition that are filing lawsuits and filing briefs to try to stop all this nonsense. And they're actually pretty successful. Yeah, they're actually being pretty successful. Another thing we ought to just mention real quick is the ASA, American Suppressor Association, or American Silencer Association.
Yeah.
They're working with a bill that was just introduced by a Representative Greg Stubbe out of Florida, that the idea of the bill is just like we have with regular background checks, your 4473, if it's not approved within a certain amount of time, then they have to let you buy the gun. So they're doing this, they're trying to go for the same thing for silencers. So if in 90 days you're not approved, then they have to go ahead and be able to sell you the silencer, which is pretty awesome if you think about that.
That's really awesome.
Like, guys, get it done. You have 90 days. That's kind of like a long time to say yes or no. And because the problem is it starts becoming arbitrary And right now we've got, folks in place who are mostly friendly to our industry. But what's to keep someone from getting an office who just says, we're going to like defund this whole background check thing. We're going to put like 3 people working on these in America.
Yeah.
And now your Second Amendment rights are being kind of violated, slowed down arbitrarily.
Yeah, I would rather have them just declassified off the NFA register altogether. And there's things that I don't know that I don't know if they make sense. The whole purpose of the bill back in 1934 had nothing to do with legal ownership of firearms. It had to do with gangsters and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, in 1934, a $200 tax stamp was a lot of money.
It was. It was. You might not want to go buy something at that point in time.
Right.
But these days, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, suppressors. I think there needs to be a case needs to be made of why they're on an NFA registry. And I don't think it's a very strong reasoning. You're not going to create more crime because somebody has a suppressor on a firearm. It's not what they think. It's based on ignorance, and I'd like to be declassified.
It's based on movies. Really, it is. It's based on movies. We were keeping this legislation
the gangster
around.
Movies and
Are you an assassin? I think Tim, you were the guy who came down to visit us, and the TSA person said, "Are you an assassin?" Because you had a silencer with you.
That's exactly right.
I still tell that story. Oh my God! Are you an assassin?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm just on a business trip.
Yes.
Well, and what drives me crazy also is when people will say, well, obviously machine guns aren't legal. I'm going, yeah, they are.
They are.
You can buy a machine gun. Well, not anyone, but most people can buy a machine gun.
Yeah.
You're not prohibited like you're, a felon. You pay for the machine gun, you pay your $200 tax stamp, and you have to wait for 10, 11, 12 months or whatever it takes. But you can buy a machine gun. They're not illegal. They're just scarce, and they're just expensive.
Yeah. That's another thing. The manufacturer ban on machine guns needs to be lifted too, because all it did is raise the price of machine guns. If you want a machine gun, you can still get one. It just costs you more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you're, and the cartel, I don't think the cartel pay $1,600 for an M4. I think they just, go down to their local M4 dealer guy and pay 800 pesos or whatever, a million pesos.
Yeah.
Wow.
So guys, thanks for being on Gun Talk Nation. We like to just kind of shoot the bull, and we certainly accomplished that today.
Yes, we did. Mission
Good time to do that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening to Gun Talk Nation. You guys be safe out there. Get some trigger time at home or in your backyard, or maybe find a little piece of land you can get outside and take your rifle for a walk.